We go. So we're recording. It's recording. Hooray! Hello, and welcome to the 16th in our 16-week series of audio-enabled EDA Step Workshop sessions. We're delighted you're here. My name is Annette, and I'm in full recovery from an eating disorder. Before we get started, a few caveats. This session of the EDA Step Workshop is being recorded. We hope to make audio recordings of the workshop accessible to everyone. Please note that these audios will not be available on the EDA website until they've gone through the full vetting process. We will, however, be sending information about the recordings to the General Service Board distribution list. And if you're not on the list, please drop a line to info@eatingdisordersanonymous.org and we'll get you added. Remember, listening to a recording is not a substitute for attending EDA meetings or working the steps. We encourage you to check out our meetings page, which includes face-to-face, online, and phone meetings. Just like what you might find at a face-to-face EDA group, what you're about to hear reflects the experiences and opinions of individual EDA members that may or may not tally with your own. Please take what you can use and leave the rest. You do not need a sponsor to attend this workshop. We will all be working the steps of EDA together, myself included. To make things easier for everyone, we've muted everybody as they join. If you'd like to be heard, please unmute your phone by using *6 on your computer, or *6 on your phone, or Alt-A on a computer. You can mute and unmute using the same key combination. Because there are a lot of us, we won't all get a chance to introduce ourselves. However, if you're speaking, please do tell us your first name and where you're from. Last week in EDA Step Workshop Session 15, Giselle, Leslie, Emily, Connie, myself, and a few others discussed how Step 10 flows into Step 11. It doesn't have to be such a tall order to find and maintain connection to what brings peace and power. Tonight, we're going to reflect on the EDA Big Book pages 199 to 208 and on how carrying the message of recovery in EDA has helped restore us to sanity and balance. We'll discuss sponsorship and our experiences with it, which is EDA Big Book pages 208 to 237, and a panel of EDA sponsors will address questions that sponsees often ask. We'll commit to taking Step 12 together, and then we'll briefly discuss how to hold an EDA Step workshop in your area. Right now, I'd like to introduce anyone on the call that has that sponsors. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're offering yourself up to become a sponsor. It just means that we're letting people know that there are others out there and that they're not alone. So I'm now trying to hit page down to make this, oh, there we go, great. So if you do sponsor, please do let us know by announcing your name and where you're from, and you can say a little about yourself if you wish. I'll start. My name's Annette. I'm in full recovery from an eating disorder, and I'm in Phoenix, Arizona.
Hi, I'm Giselle, and I'm in full recovery from an eating disorder, and I'm in Maricopa, Arizona.
So glad you're here, Giselle. Giselle has a cold. All right. Anybody else on the call?
Hi, this is Emily. I'm in recovery from an eating disorder, and I am in Phoenix, Arizona.
Hi, Emily. Thanks for dialing in.
Hi.
All right. So once again, because of the holidays, I didn't do as much outreach to try and line people up to dial in. So I apologize, folks, but we're just going to press ahead, and there may be other people joining. So we did talk already a little bit about the agenda for tonight, so we're going to bypass that page. So step 12 is really about having a spiritual awakening. The text of the step says, as a result of these steps, so hang on, let me actually get the actual text of this, which is, as a result of having had a spiritual awakening, as the result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to others with eating disorders and to practice these principles in all our affairs. And I'm totally exhausted. I hope that your weekend week has not been as grueling as mine has. I can't believe that I couldn't remember the text. So anyway, what we're here to talk about is that we don't just get to this point of working the steps and then, there's this sort of miraculous transformation. It's more like, as it discusses, and for some people maybe it does work that way, that burning bush experience, but for most people, the spiritual awakening is something that is an organic, and it's a process, not an event, and it's an educational variety, as they describe in the AA text. So if you haven't yet had something that feels like, voila, this sort of a spiritually like enlightened uh, recognition with your experience of life and your relationship to yourself, don't be alarmed. It's not that you get to this point in a workshop or by working the steps one time or any particular number of times or any particular amount of like duration. It's a gradual thing that you might not recognize until you're there, and then you're like, oh my gosh, look at this. It's my relationship to the world around me is just, it's not the same as it used to be. And that's kind of what it was like for me. I didn't really recognize that I went from like being a sort of a deeply negative, self-critical and critical of everyone else kind of a person to someone who's mostly pretty positive and grateful to be here and happy to share what I can. I kind of had all of that in me to begin with. Like, it wasn't like that was like it wasn't there. It's mostly like some of the other debris got kind of like pushed out of the way by the action of repeatedly working the steps and working them the way we do in EDA, which is with a little bit more of a sense of let's focus on what's going right and let's build that up and try to make that stronger, more flexible, and more resilient. So for me, it was really a lot about just getting to this point of like, we don't focus on happiness in order to become happy. We focus on doing the next right thing and then reflecting with gratitude about our capabilities to do that. Recovery is just like that. Spiritual awakening is just like that too. It's by focusing on others and seeing what we can bring to the party, like what recognizing with gratitude that what we bring really matters and that it can impact people positively. I mean, I always thought like, wow, I'm just this sullen, miserable mess. It's like, what am I contributing? And my awakening is more that, okay, I have this unique moment in time to do something that may really matter to others and to the greater good. And darn it, I better make the most of it. So that was, I had a sponsor that I loved. And she said, you know what, I'm just not a very spiritual person. My spiritual awakening is that I'm not a spiritual person, but that wasn't really the conclusion that I came to, but I really respected that because it allowed me to define that spiritual awakening in terms that made sense to me. So that was kind of a cool thing. But what this step is mostly about is how do we take what has worked for us, even if we've only had a bit of a toehold, but it's just, we can see that it's a toehold on a real foundation and we're starting to see some of the benefits in our lives. How do we carry this thing out? Because I mean, this is part of what I had heard in 12-step programs elsewhere was you got to give it away to keep it. And I know that's not actually strictly true, but I'll tell you what, it dramatically enhances your life if you do. It's not that you have to. I mean, I know lots of people that found recovery and they just live in recovery and it's all great. But, do they really help others in the way that people with eating disorders uniquely can help other people with eating disorders? And it's rampant in our society. Even people that don't clinically have eating disorders can be helped by somebody who's normative and kind of like refocuses, helps to reinforce things that are like really reassuring, because I mean, you hear this all the time, especially during this season about, it's like everybody in the office is like, well, it's like all this holiday food and, people can get like knocked sideways by some of this stuff. And it's like to just be reassuring is something that I feel like I'm carrying the message to. In practice, the principles is really more about how I treat people than it is anything to do with food. I mean, that's just, again, a symptom. Now, I'm not going to go blathering on too much further about this. We do have other people willing to share, and I'm so grateful for that. So I'm going to turn this over to Giselle. Are you ready to say a few things here? And Giselle's like shaking her head like, nope, I have a cold, darn it. So Emily, would you care to share a little bit either about the reading or about your experiences with the stuff?
Yeah, sure. I would love to. So this is Emily. I'm from Phoenix. Gosh, there is so much to say about step 12. I'll reflect some on my own experiences. I know that when I first started to sponsor, I very much wanted to be exactly like my sponsor because I felt like, well, what she did worked for me, so why would I stray at all? But for me, that wasn't tenable because I'm not her. So, you know, and I think a huge part of the program is about being authentic. And so I think over time I learned to be more myself, and, you know, it doesn't mean that I get to change the message to, you know, how it suits me. It just means that if I have, you know, a unique perspective, it's okay to share it. So, I think step 12, one of the huge benefits of you know, working with a sponsee for me is that it makes it really hard to slip into like my comfortable old behaviors, because, you know, I love to isolate, and if I've got a sponsee, they're calling me every day. So, and I told them to. So if I, you know, don't answer the phone, that's, I don't know, it's a responsibility for me to answer the phone and to be there for them. So there's been so many times where just, you know, a lonely moment or possibly an urge or a behavior even has been thwarted because of tending to my sponsees. And like, you know, it's as much an experience. It was drilled into me by my own sponsors that, like, they said to me, this is for me as much as it's for you, you know, and you're probably going to get not as much out of it as I am. So as a sponsor, I've kind of experienced that as well, because taking someone through the steps is like going through them again myself. And I need to be able to practice what I preach. So if I'm telling them, like, you need to, you know, I really suggest that you go to more meetings, and then I'm going to, like, you know, a meeting a week, that's a problem. So, you know, there's a lot of accountability that comes out of it, and just a lot of being a part of the steps again and reminding yourself of so many of the true things that are really hard to come to mind when you're thinking about them in terms of yourself, at least for me. But when it's somebody else, you know, I know what the right thing to do is, and then I hear myself say it, and then I have to take my own advice. So it's just a huge experience. I've learned so much that I could never have learned without having sponsees. And it's still just a journey that I'm at the very beginning of, because the more I learn about this program, the more, you know, I'm going to be ready to work with other people and just, you know, take them as far as they want to go, and then be there for them, you know, while they are on their journey, I guess. So anyway, it's just, there's a ton that comes with it. And the last thing I want to say is that step 12 doesn't have to be exclusive to sponsoring. It can also be, you know, they don't even mention sponsoring in the big book. There's so many things to do for service that you can do even as a newcomer. I know a big one for me was being welcoming to other people. And I can't tell you how many people said, hey, thank you for being so welcoming to me. And that was great. So, you know, it's whatever you feel you can do at the time. And I think a sponsor can also help with that, because it was a suggestion for me to greet people as they come to the meetings and greet newcomers as they come to the meetings. And so it's just kind of this, you know, learning of how to live this new way of being. And the more willing you are to take the suggestions, you know, the more you can be led down a path you've never gone before. So with that, I will pass.
Emily, thank you so much. That was fantastic. I really appreciate your contributions, and I couldn't have said it better. Yeah, all that stuff is exactly what it's my experience also. And Giselle's over here like, So, all right. So what, is there anyone else that would care to share about their experiences with step 12 before we kind of go back to the book and read a little bit? All right, so the EDA Big Book sections that introduce what Step 12 is kind of about brings up the point that it's through working these steps kind of in public that we reinforce who we are and help to build that person up into somebody that actually has messages worth carrying. So rather than being sidelined by our issues or by our emotions, we make use of these in daily living. We make use of them to help others, and that's everybody. So practicing these principles in all our affairs really just means engaging with this whole process of making use of what's in front of us, and not just like suffering through it, but actually rejoicing in it, finding what's great about it, sharing that with others, carrying this message that's really hopeful and positive, and investing in others, not just their recovery, but in their engagement in life too. So practicing the principles, it goes a lot deeper than just like carrying the message of recovery to people with eating disorders. We do that, but it goes beyond. And what that has done is that, that's really kind of carried that transformation to the next level. It says in the chapter 7 of the AA text, Working with Others, and it says in our own text too, between pages 199 and 200, that as we do these things, as we try to carry the message of what's worked for us to other people, and we share of ourselves authentically, life will take on new meaning. To watch people recover, to see them help others, to watch loneliness vanish, to see a fellowship grow up about you, to have a host of friends, this is an experience you must not miss. We know you will not want to miss it. Frequent contact with newcomers and with each other is the bright spot of our lives. And that's so true. It's, for me, it's like I'm a person that I tend to sign myself up for lots of responsibilities, but it's really in the people where I have those durable relationships that my life is actually, those are the things that nourish me, that actually kind of like make it, they're part of the legs of the chair, the balance that I achieve in the way I go about handling difficult situations has a lot to do with these relationships that are durable and that see us through times of great strain or pain. So that's a big deal. And then helping others is the foundation of our recovery. A kindly act once in a while is not enough. That's on page 89 in the AA text. It's on page 200, paragraph 1 in the EDA text. So really, it's step 12 is identical, I think, across all 12 step groups. And moving on to the next thing, if I can get it to do that. It's struggling. Yep. So in pages 208 to 237, it really just talks a little bit about what some of the main points are when we're working with others. So a key thing is acceptance. We never preach. We never really tell people what to do. Our focus is to listen and to empathize, because wherever people are coming from, they need an audience. They need the ability to be authentic, no matter how miserable or weird what they do or what they're thinking might be. They're not alone. I've yet to meet anybody that's had a thought so dark that I didn't relate to it at all, or so self-condemning that I couldn't even, that I didn't know how to feel what they felt. I mean, I've just never had that experience. I mean, sometimes people have done things that I'm like, "Whoa, that's interesting," but it's never been an emotion or a way of like orienting themselves to the world that I couldn't commiserate with, at least at some level. We have to remember that our only aim is to be helpful. We may question but never criticize any of the information or responses we can get from those we wish to help. Every conception of God, a higher power, or a higher purpose can work effectively if resolutely relied upon to provide the needed perspective and peace. And that's a key thing. So we never criticize people's beliefs, or whatever is true for them is their truth. We're honest about our own stories, and we empathize with the stories of others. When we do this, we find that our present as well as past experiences provide insights that help us connect with others. There's common ground not only in our former eating disordered patterns, but also in our emotional responses to life. We emphatically assure everyone suffering with an eating disorder that they can get well regardless of anyone or anything. The only conditions for recovery are that they practice reliance on their own conception of God, a higher power, or a higher purpose, that they own up to their own mistakes, past and present, and make amends where needed, and that they do their best to behave with integrity and dignity in the current situation, which is mostly about being honest. Because you know what, if you have an eating disorder and it's an active eating disorder, you're going to be doing stuff that you're ashamed of, like pretty much every day. It's like, because it doesn't make sense. It's not sane, and we know it. And so to have to admit that to other people takes tremendous courage, willingness, and just trust and faith that, people won't take our kids away, or people, it's like, geez, it can be really bad. So we listen patiently when a sponsee does blame someone else, like a family member, employers, creditors, institutions, or society as a whole, for their eating disorders or for their emotional states. Even though there could really be plenty wrong with others, or how they're being treated in their job situation or their family situation, we never criticize either of those people. We do empathize with the emotional state that our sponsees are in. Bullying, teasing, abuse, and societal pressures certainly do contribute to the development and to the maintenance of our eating disorders. However, focusing on these actually doesn't really help. So we don't actually belabor the point. So if somebody brings up, their mother or something that causes recurring trouble, we try to help gently point them to what they can do to help make the situation better. So we remind sponsees that blaming others for our attitudes and actions undermines our own accountability and responsibility as adults. So we also need to remember that focusing on the errors of others actually never helps anybody get better. It doesn't. So we encourage our sponsees to focus on what they think a person with integrity and dignity would do in the situation, and guide them to accept their part in any conflict. And also, whatever their idea is of what a person of dignity and integrity would do, we support them. Okay, we don't criticize that. We don't say, oh, no, we would never do that. So we might say, gosh, if that was me, I might be thinking, so we can kind of guide them in directions, but it never helps anybody to get, like, you come down like a sack of bricks once, you may never hear from them again. So anyway, we allow sponsees to work directly with life situations as they are, rather than trying to fix things for them. Fixing things for them would deprive them of the opportunity to grow and mature in recovery. An exception is when a sponsee situation is physically not safe. In that case, our first objective is to get them to safety. So if you have a person that's in a situation of abuse, this is not one where you should just commiserate and talk about their problem. You really need to help them get into a situation that is actually where their physical safety comes first. And even emotional safety, it may be necessary to advise them to find a safer place so that they can get some perspective. All right, so let newcomers share their experiences with you. It's valuable, not only because it validates their thoughts and feelings, but it shows that it allows you to share some of your own experiences. So if a newcomer shows interest in EDA, go ahead and share a short version of your own story, but try not to go overboard. You may lose them if you show an overabundance of enthusiasm. If you look at the EDA Big Book Chapter 7's basic outline for taking someone through the steps, which starts on page 208, you'll have lots of experiences to share your own strength and hope with the folks. It's not really just about what's in the text, it's also about what's working for you. So please be sure to refer to the text, but also talk about how that's played out in your own life. Like Emily said, that's probably the most important thing, is making it real, make it concrete, show exactly what you do. So when I sponsor people, I usually share with other people what's in my 10th step. Does that embarrass me? Well, sometimes, yeah, it does, because all kinds of stuff shows up in there, but I don't edit it. I think it's really important, and I hope nobody shares my crap, but I don't care really at one level. It's like, I don't feel like people could bribe me. It's like, okay, it's nothing so horrible. At this point, at least, it's nothing so horrible that it would compromise me at that level. And I think that the directness of our experience is what actually carries hope the most strongly. And so that's the main thing we're trying to convey to others, is hope of recovery. So to continue, as you work the steps with a newcomer, you may not have the answers that they need. They may have situations that absolutely don't tally with anything that you've had to experience, and that's really just fine. We're not expected as sponsors. Nobody is better than anybody else, and all you can do is say, look, that's a great question. Let me ask my sponsor. Let me ask somebody else that maybe we can find some solution or some other way of looking at this. So never feel like you have to have all the answers. Whenever somebody has finished steps 1 through 8, has made significant progress in making amends, step 9, and has adopted a daily practice of steps 10 and 11, we encourage them to start sponsoring others. Now, if your sponsee is not situated where they can sponsor locally, we do suggest that they join like an online or phone meeting, or write to sponsors at eatingdisordersanonymous.org and offer to serve as a sponsor. Working with others should now be a primary focus. So we know that sharing our own journey with others is something that's turned out to be just a wonderful opportunity to turn a life of pain and misery into one that inspires others with honesty, integrity, compassion, and hope. We hope that everybody has an opportunity to sponsor, because I've gotten so much out of that that I would never have imagined. I mean, to me, it's like, oh great, so I get to hear somebody else's veil of tears for however long, and really, you know what, it's not like that. When I sponsor people, they mention situations and bring up topics, and I'm like, dang, that's exactly what I'm going through. What would I tell somebody? And it's like, and then again, just like Emily said, I'm talking to them about what I would do, and then I think, gosh, am I doing that? Maybe I should do that. It's like, so even if it might not be something that's directly applicable, it has helped me also, like, watching people work through marital struggles. So I'm like, it's given me gratitude that maybe I don't have that one right now, but also it's informed me as like, oh, if that comes up in my life, how am I going to handle that? So, I've been lucky, it's like I haven't had to deal with infidelity situations, but I have a pretty darn good idea what I would do about it now, which is, thanks to this program, I have gotten so much out of sponsoring. It's been a tremendous boon to my life, and I recommend it highly to everyone. So, I think I've already kind of gone through all of this section here. So honestly, I would love for other people to share their experiences with Step 12 and just carrying the message. Again, doesn't have to be sponsoring. It can be a lot of different things. It can be just showing up at a meeting and bring literature, or, try to help that engaging with people, like Emily said, welcoming people. Some of the best things we can do is just sit up and tell people what's true for us when sharing in a meeting. So if you're not situated where there's face-to-face meetings, show up at these online and at the phone meetings. People need support. They need to be validated. And you know what, that process of reaching out and sharing your own experience, even if it's maybe not so great at the moment, keeping it focused on what has worked in the past will actually maybe something that sparks recovery in somebody else. So I'd like to open the floor and see if anybody has anything else that they'd care to contribute on this step before we go to the questions. Star 6 to unmute.
I'd
Hi,
like to
Leah.
share.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
First of all, I just want to say, like, step 12 has, like, really helped me so much. It really changed my life. I mean, that sounds so dramatic, but it's true. I'm currently working step 6, but I feel like I have the opportunity to practice step 12 every day. Like, some days, if I'm, like, frustrated or maybe, like, feel despair over my recovery, like, if I know that I was able to at least, be of service to someone, even if it was in, like, a small way, of just, like, smiling at someone or genuinely asking how they're doing, like, it makes me feel so grateful that I was able to, like, make a difference in someone's life. And I, like, count that as a milestone of my day. And then I'm able to, like, focus on what I'm doing right and good in my recovery. And another thing that step 12 does is it kind of, like, replaces the constant eating disorder voices in my head, because, like, it used to be the whole day I'd hear, just my eating disorder tell me, like, you got to lose weight, you this and that, like, so many things all the time. And now it's like I have to get rid of those thoughts, but I need to replace it with something, because then there's, like, this void. So when I replace it with how can I be of service to other people, and, like, how can I help someone, it, like, takes the place of the eating disorder, but, like, more. It's, like, even more fulfilling. So that definitely is something that helps me, because otherwise, like, I used to feel like in the beginning of recovery, like, oh my gosh, what am I without my eating disorder? Like I don't even know, like, what to do. Like, it was so overwhelming, and because I felt like that was my goal in life. And now it's like I have another goal. And, like, for example, today, like, on my lunch break at work, like, I was like in such a bad mood. Like everything today I felt like went wrong. I was just like so annoyed at everything. And, you know, I had a whole hour lunch break. So a lot of behaviors could have gone on. And I was able to like recognize my negative thoughts and see like how I was like throwing a pity party for myself. And so I immediately like went to my phone and I texted someone, a coworker who I know was going through some things in her life, and I had told her I would help her find someone who can help her, but I just pushed off like getting that done. And so I spent the time then to connect with her, and I spent the time like helping someone else. It made me feel so much better and so much more fulfilled. I didn't feel like isolating as much. So like the service was able to like take place of like behaviors.
Mhm.
And also I wanted to add that for me, being of service to people and like doing step 12 can sometimes be my higher power, because I mean, every day my higher power changes. I try to pray in the morning. I have someone in the program that I met at the EDA workshops in the summer, and we try to pray every day together. And I try to, you know, imagine and verbalize what my higher power is. And some days I'm like, you know, today I just believe in the power of service and like helping other people. And that makes me feel connected to something other than myself. And it's kind of like a relief to know that there's something greater than myself that has helped other people and totally has helped my life. And then I feel good that I'm able to like do step 2. So I'm just really grateful for step 12. And thanks for listening to my share. I'll pass.
That's awesome.
That's terrific, Leah. Thank you so much. And Leah from Oklahoma. Yay. So listen, I want to hear from other people's experiences with the spiritual awakening. So, I mean, I carry one particular version of that, but that's not like a definitive version. There is no definitive version. Your definitive version is yours. So anybody care to share about that aspect of their recovery? *6 to unmute. I'm going to invite Giselle to speak, even though she doesn't want to, and she's laughing at me over here. But I know that your relationship with your higher power has changed over time. And, you know, I think it's continued to unfold. Do you want to talk about that at all? You're like, I don't want to talk at all. I have a cold and I'm miserable. Now you're making me talk. And so.
This is Giselle. And yeah, over the years, it definitely, my relationship with God and my higher power, whatever you want to call it, has changed. And I can't add any more about what has been said about the 12-step, because it's phenomenal. It's the accountability and what I've learned with the like Annette was saying, my relationship with God has changed, and it was way in the beginning. And I read a book, and that's kind of got started with getting God out of a box. And I like what Emily said, kind of about, you know, her higher power changing, because mine has changed over the years as far as letting him out of the box. And because I was raised in a real religious, legalistic kind of place, and I've had to let a lot of that go. And over the years, I still watch my dad and my brothers, and I'm like so grateful I am out of that, because my God is bigger than that. It's not necessarily, it's spiritual. It's the whole. I'm connected. I'm connected all around me, and like, you know, like I think Emily or Leah said, it's that connection, and whatever I'm doing, I can have that connection. And I think last week we were talking, I don't know, about meditations and stuff, and I have things I say, different meditations that bring me to that connection.
Mm-hmm.
And it does put me in that place of now what can I do to help somebody else? And it just definitely puts me in that place of service and place of gratitude, and then I'm not so selfish and self-centered, and more willing to be of service, more willing to help someone out, and and being a part of something is accountability. And I've gone through my life in different phases where I don't want to be a part of nothing. I want to isolate, and I don't grow much during those times. And so I have to get out of the way. I have to get out of myself, because I don't grow much, and I'm not much help to anybody else when I'm being selfish and self-centered and just want to isolate and woe is me. I can go into that just like anybody else can. And that's the thing with working the 12 steps is I'm not done, because I'm still human and I'm going to make mistakes. And I think that's part of what I've learned from different sponsors and different people in my life is we're all human. We're all going to make mistakes. And doesn't just because I've gone through these steps and I have my higher power, and it doesn't mean I'm all better. I was talking to a friend just over Christmas. She's away a lot. She's in the union, so she's away a lot, and she has a hard time connecting sometimes because she doesn't have the stability. And so she's thinking that she's doing something wrong, and I'm just like, you're not doing anything wrong. You're human. And we forget that. It's like, okay, I'm struck sober. No. It's like working these steps is a lifelong deal. And finding what connects me, and with this friend, one of her keys to connection is stability and meetings and being around people, and hearing the stories and sharing. And that's part of her recovery and part of her story. And I dig that. I forget sometimes how much I like being around recovery and just talking around the kitchen table. I dig that. And I would like to do more of that, but then I get selfish and want to isolate.
Yeah.
Because stuff always
there's a balance, right?
There's a balance, and it's just working out that balance. And I don't know. I'm glad that we're doing this, and it's been an experience. And Step 12 is definitely an ongoing thing. And I think Leah was saying that, yeah, my higher power has changed over the years, and the 12 step, it just reinforces. It just reinforces that change and growth. And with that, I'll pass. Thank you.
Thanks, Giselle. I'm so glad you spoke. Yeah, no, she really is in pain. I'm sorry, but I'm really grateful we had that opportunity to hear you, and it's always just a joy to watch and witness you and your recovery. I just can't say enough about how impactful that has been for me. That process of witnessing and seeing this put into action is more important than what we say. Is like watching it happen. So honestly, this is a pattern for living that really works in all conditions, and this step is what really brings it home. So it's putting step 11 into practice. Is really putting legs and taking it out into the world and making those wonderful thoughts of like peace and love and service and, bringing good cheer and energy and using our time and talent and training to some good purpose. This is where we do it in step 12. And, I really do want to emphasize too that what it says is that we try to carry this message to others with eating disorders and work these principles in all our others. And the and is important because it's like I do work this, and I have worked this in my life, and it has made a tremendous difference in my work relationships, in my family relationships, in every connection I have. The step is informed it has informed it, and it's not like everything's all better. I mean, this has been a horrible month, but I am loving life anyway, and because I love the richness of this experience, and it's going to give me opportunity to share my experience and strength and hope with still others. So that's really cool. We have a few questions that people have typically bring up, and we're going to talk about them now. So the first one is, I worked the steps, but I'm still in early recovery. I don't think what I have now is good enough for me to sponsor others. How will I know when I'm ready to sponsor? Can we speak to that?
Anyway.
Yeah, I can speak to that. Emily from Phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Emily.
Hello. So, one thing is, if you have a sponsor, they will probably let you know when it is time to sponsor. And I say that because this should probably override any other consideration you have about being a sponsor. Because literally, I don't know the people, I haven't met the people who have been super amped and like so prepared to sponsor once they worked the steps. They were like, I can't wait. I mean, speaking for myself, I was just like, I don't really want to do this. I'm doing this because I feel like I have to, because it's part of my recovery, and I'm going to be sick if I don't, and that's just honesty. But yeah, so I think from what my experience is, it's about accepting that the only thing that you need to help this other person is having worked the steps yourself. You don't have to be like Buddha or a guru. You don't have to be just like your sponsor, because your sponsors worked with people. They've kind of gotten used to this process, and it's like they had to start somewhere too. So, but all you have to be is yourself, and take them through the steps the same way you were taken. And I think there's a lot of learning that goes on, at least for me, in being a sponsor. When I first started, like I was always told that being a sponsor was going to teach me boundaries, and it definitely did. When I first started, I wasn't very clear about what my role was as a sponsor. But I think the more that I continued in the process, the more I kind of got more focused on what it was that I was supposed to do, and also what it was I wasn't supposed to do, because I'm not equipped to handle anyone's like romantic problems or, their finances or anything like that. And to take that on that's what I'm starting to BS, but the authentic thing is to say, I don't know about stuff like that. It's always okay to say, I don't know. I suggest you talk to someone else who does know. I can try and help you find someone. And then if you do have experience with it, what I was always taught to do was to say, well, my experience. And then sometimes even the intro, would you like my opinion? And then if they would, sharing your experience. And that's really all you can do. And you just do that, and you're fully capable of doing that if you've worked the steps. And I think just remembering that's the job of a sponsor. You kind of got to step outside your comfort zone, that one little step, and trust that you know what you're doing because you've done it. So that's what I would say from my experience. I'll pass.
Thanks, Emily. That was fantastic. Anybody want to add to that? Oh, that was a great answer. Yeah, I didn't want to sponsor at all. I mean, it's like I didn't even like the whole idea of sponsorship, even though I'd had great sponsors. They didn't really Giselle and I didn't really have sponsors in this program back in the beginning. We had this idea of like maybe step buddies would work because we'd kind of used that. But The research shows step buddies, if you've got people who are pretty sick and they haven't worked the steps, this doesn't work at all. In fact, it can be bad. So we kind of backed off that idea, and actually Nuria did a great job of really like rebooting sponsorship in EDA, and and it's working. And the thing is that what had been working was sharing experience, strength, and hope with each other, as peers, as equals, but you have to have people who have worked the steps. And this is the thing that in EDA, sponsorship is about helping others work the steps. I'm really glad that you mentioned that, Emily, because if we've worked the steps, I encourage my sponsees to start sponsoring others, because if I'm not seeing them get better in the course of working the steps, then it's like we go back to work the steps that seem like they're causing the most trouble. But it doesn't mean that when you're done working the steps the first time that you're going to be like free of any behaviors. That is not the case. And we don't expect people, when they get done with the first pass at the steps, that they're going to be like in great recovery. They're going to have made some progress in changing the way they think about things, and they'll have picked up new practices that maybe, like Leah was mentioning, work better than resorting to an eating disorder. That's good enough. Okay, realistically, if you're making significant inroads and you're a lot better than, or even a little better than you were, and you know it's working, and as long as you're investing in it, it's making a difference, that's what you need to share with others. It's not that you've got this perfect recovery, because I didn't want to sponsor for a long time. I didn't have perfect recovery. It's like I'd think, well, gosh, it's been 3 years, but then I threw up. That's not perfect recovery. I can't possibly sponsor, and that's ridiculous, because, if I've gone 3 years without resorting to behaviors, that's pretty darn good. And we need to focus on how we can make use of what we do have. And that has what has really made much longer term recovery possible, is that, reminding people like, yeah, no, that first year, it can be really kind of rocky, it's like okay. That groundedness is what helps bring hope into the situations where people, it's like, I wanted to give up in disgust over and over again that first year, because I kept just running into trouble. And it was only people that were like, no, you're okay. Just focus on what's going right. That's what really helped me. And that's what I can share with others in recovery from eating disorders, is that I can help them with that, because that's what worked for me. So how much time should we spend with sponsees? There's a good question. I just heard Emily say, like, they get called every day.
Boundaries.
Yeah, boundaries. Okay, so let's talk about that. How much time should we spend with a sponsee? When I was getting, working with a sponsor, I got like an hour a week. How's that working for everybody else?
Hi, this is Leslie.
Hi, Leslie.
Hi, I just logged on late, but I'm here.
Oh, wonderful. I'm
And
so glad you're here.
so I'm in recovery, and I'm in Florida right now, actually, also. So in terms of spending time with sponsees, when I first started in EDA, my first sponsor had me call her every day, and that was amazing. And it was really, really useful. But then that sponsorship relationship ended. Like, some things came up in her life, and she couldn't sponsor me anymore. And the next sponsor, my current sponsor, that's not how it works. Now she and I talk once a week, or more if I need it. But I have in another program, I do talk with someone every day. And so I find that for the way it's working for me right now with sponsees is that I had a wonderful relationship with a sponsee who called every day up until step 10. And then we're transitioning to doing the 10th step as by email, and then touching base when we need to. And now I have like that calling slot available for another sponsee who's at step 2. So it's just interesting to notice that I think it depends on how much I have available, and what the sponsee is also willing to do.
I like that.
That's perfect. And I love that you sort of scale the availability to where people are in working the steps. So that's wonderful to hear. I try to do that, but realistically, like when I sponsor, it varies by like I have sponsored some people via email. I've sponsored other people over Skype. I've sponsored other people via phone call in the car, which is terrible, and I'm trying to avoid doing that in the future. But well, it's not terrible as a thing, but it's not safe. It's not safe practices. So anyway, but there's a lot of things that sometimes work great with some people and don't work so well with others. So, I try to make myself available to sponsor people. And right now my life is chaos and I'm scaling back on some things. So, it's really about finding the balance for you and finding what seems to be working for the person that you're working with. So varies a lot. Anybody
It varies
else?
a lot. One final thing that I want to just add about that is that also encouraging my sponsees to start making outreach calls as a part of their working their 12 step.
I get that.
And really building that muscle of picking up the phone and calling.
Yeah.
That's perfect, and that is a wonderful tool. I always encourage people to bracket difficult things by connecting with others before and after, and really reaching out. And it's like even in like a spot check inventory, you might not be able to do what the next right thing is, but you can just go reach out and go walk around and connect with people. And I honestly really think that helps tremendously. So thanks for bringing that up, Leslie. Next question. One gal I tried to sponsor didn't even want to hear from me after I had a short lapse into old behaviors, even though I was rigorously honest with her and my sponsor. I feel ashamed now, like I should never sponsor again. How do I get past this?
I can speak to that. This is Emily in Phoenix.
Hi, Emily.
Hi. So I have some experience with this. And I think, honestly, it was my own sponsor who spoke a lot of wisdom to me about this, because I think it's always appropriate to be authentic and real with your sponsees, especially about, stuff like slip-ups and stuff like that, because you don't want you want there to be honesty there, and to teach them that honesty is a super important part of recovery. And so I don't think that was the wrong thing to do. What my sponsor would always say to me is to remember, like, that this relationship is not about you. It's about them. And, as a sponsor, you're there for them as long as they will have you, and as long as they're doing the work, whatever you've agreed upon. And so if they change, it's just got to be something you don't take too personally, or don't take personally at all, because it's them and it's their journey and it's what they're going through and the choices they're making. And to be honest, I would imagine someone who hadn't sponsored before wouldn't understand it from the sponsor's point of view. But since we don't really have any business in other people's minds, it's just about, accepting it, and also knowing that, again, you have worked the steps. And recovery is a journey. It's a process, not an event. And it's normal to have slip-ups. So it's great if you have a sponsor of your own, or just friends in recovery that you can reach out to and talk about this, and have them normalize the fact that you did the right thing after having some slips. You got back on the horse, you were honest about it, you moved on. And that's what's most important, like, not how great you look as a sponsor and how many people want you to sponsor them. What's most important is your own recovery. And taking care of that. And then people will see what you have, and they will want it, and you will be able to help. So that's what I got. I'll pass.
Thanks, Emily. And I wanted to bring this up because, again, this is not a program of abstinence. We're not modeling ourselves on people with abstinence. We're modeling ourselves on people who understand that life is about balance and about positivity and about contributing and making utilizing our emotions to serve the purpose that they were intended to, which is motivational. And it's not always graceful. It's not always pretty. And especially in early recovery, when you're trying to sponsor somebody and you're still like just working your way out of a lifelong pattern of behaviors, it's like, no, it's something to celebrate that you're honest. It's, especially if you're in a position of like authority, like a sponsor, I'm putting air quotes around that, it's the most important thing is that example of courage. Oh my gosh. So no, it's like celebrate that, be grateful for who you are, go forth and carry your message of what it means to be real. So it's like, I'm delighted with people who are just real. And I did actually have that experience too, where I slipped up and my sponsee was like, okay, see ya. So it hurt. It did hurt. And there was shame around it. So I could really relate. All right, next question. My sponsee doesn't seem to be, my sponsee doesn't seem to want to try doing what I tell him worked for me. It's frustrating when I hear about the same difficulties over and over again. I'm exhausted. What can I say to him? Giselle's chuckling because Giselle knows what she would say.
Well, I tend to be a little blunt. I guess it reminds me of a place in the book about, if I don't want to waste time, not waste time. If someone's not getting it, then they're just not ready, and I need to not waste my time. And there could be somebody else that could really benefit from my experience and my stuff, and that's what it talks about in the book. But I guess somebody doesn't know until they're told. Mm-hmm. And so maybe they're not aware that they've got this issue about complaining and staying stuck, because that's what it reminds me of, is just they're unwilling or stubborn or not, just scared and in fear and not willing to see that there could be changes. And I need to call them on it. I need to let them know that this is what I'm seeing. And if you're not liking what I suggest, maybe come up with your own solution and let's see how that works. And if there still aren't any changes, I need to move on, because there's other people who are open. Some people aren't ready yet. It takes what it takes. I want to leave the door open. Maybe they're ready in another time, but I need to move on, because I'm there's other people who could benefit from me. So I tend to get a little blunt, though.
We love you, Giselle. We really do. Okay, so and I know we're short of time and we want to wrap it up, so I'm going to get through the next couple of questions here real quick. And that's exactly what I would do. Is just, it's like, say that hey, I'm still open to you. If you're willing to kind of pick up where we left off, please let me know. And I'm sorry, but I've got a waiting list. So and I do, and that's really fine. It's okay. Mm-hmm. People sometimes just need to hear the truth. My sponsee has worked the steps with me but wants to keep calling. I want to carry the message to new people who need to hear it, but I feel guilty for leaving this person whom I've grown to love behind. I can't do it all. I'm feeling overwhelmed. How can I feel better about this? Anybody have that experience? Well, for one thing, this is a common problem, and we do in EDA. We encourage people to after you work the steps with a sponsee, help them get engaged with sponsoring others, and then turn to someone else new who can profit. And so we keep the message going. We have a need for sponsors in EDA. Once you've worked the steps with somebody and you can see that they're making traction, we do really encourage people to keep pushing on. That doesn't mean that you're obligated to say, hey, it's like, you can't call me now. I'm done. We got to move on. That's not the point. And I still hear and communicate with people that I've sponsored, but it's not like I always talk to them or regularly talk to them. It's more like I'll reach out or they'll reach out on an occasional basis. And man, it's the coolest thing ever to get those, people calling me or getting those emails. But honestly, I think that the main thing, the way to feel better about it is to know that the main thing is like, what's the next right thing? It's not destroying old connections and abandoning people you love. It's not like that at all. It's encouraging them to seek the same kinds of relationships that you've had with new sponsees, people who need to hear the message. It actually does everyone a great deal of good. Giselle's going to have to go, and we're having to wrap it up. So the last one was, I can only sponsor somebody via email. Can this work? And the answer is, well, of course it can. Mm-hmm. Everything can work in a pinch. So please do the best you can. We have a few more comments here, but I really, first of all, want to thank Giselle for her participation in this workshop. The remaining bits are really just about, how to start a workshop where you are, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But I would like to take this opportunity to just commit to doing step 12 together before we talk about the workshop. So let's say step 12 together on the count of 3. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of working these steps, we tried to carry this message to others with eating disorders, and to carry this message, to practice these principles in all our affairs. Woohoo!
Yay!
Step 12, yeah! Well, I have really enjoyed this workshop. I've enjoyed this step. Thank you, Giselle, for showing up even though you're sick. And
I gotta go work anyway.
I know you gotta work even though you're sick. This is, and they're not even paying you.
Very well.
Well, okay. Oh my gosh. Well, okay. Have a wonderful week.
Joy.
Happy joy.
Bye, guys.
Okay, love you.
Love you.
Take care. And so we're going to spend a couple more minutes talking here now about starting workshops where you're at. So the General Service Board of EDA has made it possible to hold workshops in various places throughout the country. And we do want to just take an opportunity to point out that pretty much anybody can host a workshop. We've got supports for you. There is not a lot in the way of money. That's the biggest thing. So we can talk to you about our experiences holding step workshops. Some of them have, broken even. Some of them have lost money. One of them got a tiny amount of profit. We try to make these as inexpensive as possible. So it's not a money-making thing. If you were to make money out of it, it probably wouldn't, that's not something that EDA tries to do. But the main thing is that we do have people who have done it before available to you at the General Service Board. Please write info@eatingdisordersanonymous.org, and it will go to people that have done this. So we can give you pointers. We can help you get stuff set up. Some of it's really straightforward and easy. Some of it not so much. Generally, we've put together stuff using website facilities that enable you to get tickets to people, essentially. So it helps to organize if you use one of those facilities, but it's not really needed. You can do it informally as well. So we've had local commuter only type workshops, like in Florida they had one in June, but we've also had workshops where you stay overnight at a facility. A lot of different approaches can work. We've even had small workshops, one-day workshops where we work 3 steps together on one weekend and then another 3 steps another weekend. Lots of different approaches can work. I wanted to open the floor and see if there were questions, because we can also talk about working with professionals. We have literature available to try and see if we can get people engaged with EDA to help support the implementation of a workshop. So one of the best things to do sometimes is to talk to professionals in your community about timing, and if there's anybody that could be potentially willing to help support this, not from a monetary perspective, but just in terms of creating a facility or lots of different approaches that you can take. So does anybody have questions about how to hold a workshop? Go ahead.
Well, I think I texted you individually about the workshops that are available. So you had said the Thursdays at 7 p.m. Arizona time. I wanted to know more or less what the structure is of those meetings.
Oh, okay. So we're not going to necessarily do a workshop format. We had like this. This is the Thursday meeting that is the workshop, and we're recording it. So the intention is that we're going to make those available, probably edited. I don't know that the editing on this has been too amazing, but the hope is that we'll make these accessible to people in at least a podcast kind of format. So if people want to listen, they can do that. But right now, for me personally, I'm going to not do a workshop again. It's like I did 3 workshops plus this like weekly with stuff workshop this past year, and it's too much. I mean, I have a mom who's not doing well. I've got situations with work and home that need more attention. So for me personally, I'm stepping back a bit. But and besides, there's literature that we're writing, and there's more stuff going on that I can't do it. But so I don't know if others are holding stuff workshops. I haven't heard of any in the near offing, but I will, if you texted me or sent me an email, I'll get you on the list so that we can get to all of the like the audio versions of this.
Okay.
We're also going to make the PowerPoint decks and stuff available to people as well. So not leaving people, and anyway, the book is available, and we're working on a version of this that is like a 12 traditions. So that's going to come up to support people getting a better understanding of that as well. As far as I would love to encourage people that have some recovery to hold a workshop to attract others and to increase sponsorship. One of the main reasons to do these workshops is to help people feel comfortable with the EDA way of working the steps. Because I actually think a lot of people in EDA have worked the steps in other programs, but they don't sponsor because they feel like, gosh, I don't have this perfect recovery. I mean, just like I didn't want to sponsor because I didn't feel like I had a good enough recovery, even though you look at on the face of it, I don't have an eating disorder in, like, I don't know, long in terms of like clinically having an eating disorder in like 18 years. But I think that I didn't want to sponsor because I didn't feel good enough, which is very much. What's that sound like? It sounds like an eating disorder. It sounds like that disordered thinking that says that we're not enough. So I would really encourage everybody, considering the environment that they're in their local, are there strong EDA meetings? Is there strong sponsorship? If not, let's create it. Because you know what, when Giselle and I started this thing, there wasn't sponsorship. There wasn't strong EDA anywhere. And we hadn't codified it in a book. And, there 50 people contributed to that book. It's not like it was just the 2 of us. It was actually a lot of people. And I am stoked about the hope that this is generating. We have lots of professionals community who are like, wow, this is great. So they do recognize this is a well-respected program, even though it's still in its infancy. The EDA Big Book that this workshop is based on just got published like 2 years ago today. I mean, it hit the shelves in December of 2016. So you guys are right on the ground floor, really, as far as EDA like growth and fellowship is concerned. So don't feel like you're left behind. You are so not. You're right out there. And I really want everybody to feel like this is achievable for all. If somebody like me who doesn't really like fit this model very well at all can work this program successfully, I genuinely and sincerely believe anybody can work it. And it's that process of carrying the message of like what we've done together, even just now in this workshop. If you've gotten some ideas and it's working for you, but goodness sakes, please help carry that to others. Please help make this stuff accessible to other people and carry the message, because that's really where the things that matter most in life are really based on those connections with others. When I think of like all of the things I've done in my career and whether that's ever going to make a difference in even 5 years from now, and the answer is like probably not. Except maybe to the extent that I've mentored other people or invested in them or their education or their relationships professionally. Probably there's like nothing there. But when I think about like the relationships I have in my family and the relationships with my friends and the relationships with folks in EDA, it's like that stuff matters, guys. It's like go for the gold. It's like really it's worth the investment. It's been worth it for me, and I am not. I'm such an introvert. It's ridiculous. So I really encourage you to embrace this stuff and make it yours and carry it forward in whatever form works for you. That's what sponsorship and carrying the message in EDA is about. It's what's working for you. Okay. So any questions? Go ahead.
I do. I loved your answer, but I meant to say, what is the structure of the Zoom meetings to come? Like, because this was a very organized session, and in my experience of going to AA meetings, it was kind of random. And so, what is the structure of what the meetings will be, and how to commit to that?
Yeah, so we're going to make a Zoom meeting accessible Monday nights at 7 p.m. starting January 7th. And the structure of those meetings is like a traditional EDA meeting. So it follows a standard format, and we read from the format. It basically goes through an intro. If you've been to other EDA phone meetings, it'll be very similar to that. We will have a physical meeting here in Phoenix, Arizona, and the Zoom meeting will be an extension of that. So the people that are dialing into the Zoom meeting will hear people in the room, and we're just going to run it like a normal phone meeting, except there will be physical live people there as well.
So it'll be 7 Arizona time?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, wonderful. Thank you.
Hi, this
Sure.
is Connie. I have a question. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure. Please go ahead.
Thank you. I feel like if I ever try to talk about EDA or share the message in any way whatsoever, it just, people do not understand and get it. And then people just start talking about diets and weight loss and abstinence. And then I pretty much gave up ever talking about it and sharing the message because it just it doesn't work out. I don't know if I'm doing something. I don't think I'm doing anything wrong. I just think that it's so different than what anybody knows that you don't even hear me. I don't know. Because you're saying share the message, but it doesn't seem like a good idea for me. So I don't know.
Yeah, so Connie, honestly, that's pretty norm. That's pretty much the norm. I don't think most people that don't work directly with people with eating disorders, and an eating disorder is a mental illness. It's like the eating disorder is only the manifestation of how that all works out. But the mental illness is a serious mental illness. It's the most deadly of mental illnesses, and when you talk to people about EDA and what they're hearing is either diets and weight loss or something that looks like OA, or it is hard to kind of get that through to everybody, what that really means. And I think a cop is now going to try to be getting me out of where I'm located in the media lot of the airport where I had to meet Giselle. So I don't know if I can continue this conversation. But the point is, carrying the message just means being authentic, being who you are, telling people that, especially professionals, will get it. If you're dealing with a, registered dietitian that's been trained in working with people with eating disorders, they're going to get it. If you're talking to, people in treatment area, like any kind of treatment, they will probably get it. Now, people that deal with, other substance abuse type things may not get it. So don't be alarmed. There's always those questions about, well, if there's no abstinence, what have you got? Well, full recovery means actually not having the thoughts, not having, the expression of the behaviors and at all. And that's the coolest thing ever, but people don't get it, and it's all right. You're not doing anything wrong. It is totally fine. But just because people don't get it is not a reason to stop sharing the message, because there might be 25 people that completely misunderstand and think that you do want to talk about what you don't want to talk about, which is diets and weight management. But the people that need to hear the message, you may save a life. You may save many. So please don't stop. All right. Anybody else? Because I've got to wrap. I think these people are coming over to like get me to move my car. Okay. Listen, it's been a joy and an honor working with all of you, and I am so delighted to have this opportunity. I hope you've all had a wonderful run of these workshop series sessions, and I do hope to do them again at some point in the future. And all I can say is I really hope that you do find peace and freedom in this program or through anything that you're doing. I love you, and I really want the best for every one of you. So thanks for being there. And
Thank you.
Awesome question. Can I ask?
Thank you. Love you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you so
much.
much, Annette. You're awesome.
Amazing. And
Everything's been
Thank
great.
you, Annette.
thank you. Bye, everybody.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye,
Thank you.
Annette.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Miss you.